Good seeing everybody. Obviously excited to get this thing going. Very optimistic about this group. Had a very productive fall, not only on the field but off the field. Another record-setting GPA by this squad. Not easy to do when you have 24 newcomers, but the returners have done a good job of kind of helping those guys get acclimated to the way we do things, and that process has been great. Fortunate to have our whole on-field staff return, including our athletic trainer, Kaylee Shores. That also helps in that ease for those new guys. And then we were able to add 3 home runs with Danny Nearai to our development staff. And he's obviously familiar with a lot of things that we do, but he is going to be a great coach one day. We're excited about where that leads for him. And then we were fortunate to add H.R. Powell as our strength coach, and he's completely overhauled that strength and conditioning department on as far as our baseball program goes, and really excited to see that kind of translate onto the field, see what that looks like. But again, really excited about this group. Our staff's excited about seeing how we can grow with this thing and what this thing truly looks like at the end, and seeing if we can compete for a Big 12 title. So, thank you.
Coach, how different does this season feel for you? Obviously, last year was your first year. Obviously, very familiar with UCF already, but you were learning a new roster, working with the staff you knew, but hadn't really worked with in the same capacity. But now that you've been established and gone through, one season, how different does it feel going into year 2?
Yeah, completely different. Like you said, the new staff, we hadn't worked together. So the day-to-day operations of getting practice ready and really understanding what we wanted out of practice, it's a lot less explaining to the coaches and more just making sure the kids completely understand what we're trying to get done that day. And just everybody knowing what they needs to be done on a daily basis really helps.
Rich, what's been your philosophy this offseason on constructing your roster? I mean, where do you feel like maybe you needed to add some pieces, and where did you feel like maybe you need to shift some things over?
Yeah, and that started about this time last year when we were looking at the roster and kind of knowing what we were getting into in the Big 12 with the level of athleticism and the depth on the mound and what it took to make it from week 1 to week 10 in this league. So we kind of focused on getting our position players more athletic and adding depth in that position. We got to the last game of the year last year, and we lost another infielder or catcher. I don't know how we were going to play. So that part of it, the athleticism, and then just add to the depth on the mound, the ability for guys to start. So we've added to that depth, and then the variety in the bullpen. We had truly one left-handed pitcher last year that we could use in a game. Now we're at the 5 or 6 that we feel like we can match up in certain points, because you want good arms, but they can't all look the same. They really can't. When you're running guys out of that bullpen, you're kind of looking for variety and different looks and create some matchup problems. And sometimes last year we felt like we were stuck with just run out the best guy. And I know the matchup doesn't look right, but this is our best guy, so run him out there. And I think the coaches addressed that in the offseason.
Coach, expanding on that, how does having a full offseason work for the pitcher, working with the pitchers for Coach Thomas? Because he managed to improve quite a lot just after being hired.
Well, I think you saw the guys that were returners last year, like Castellano, Stagliano, Ben Vespi, Centala, like the improvement that those guys made in a 6-month span. I think you'll see even bigger improvements from a guy like Stagliano and Galvan and even Bauer, who just got back. Like, the improvements that they've been able to make being in the system for 18 months as opposed to 6 months will be immense.
Coach, you achieved a variety of accomplishments in your first year at the helm, notably with the first tournament appearance in almost a decade for the program. But for you personally, what lessons do you feel like you learned last season that you can bring into this year?
Yeah, I think when you get really into the league, the travel of the league for us, probably as much as anybody in our league, really can beat you down with the way we have to travel, the setup of the schedule. And I didn't get to design a lot of last year's schedule, but trying to eliminate some of the midweek games the day before we leave, and really just trying to shorten some practices as we get into the league, just because the travel beats our guys up so much. I thought that was one thing where we sat down at the end of the year, just being smarter on how we plan out the week and give those guys a chance to compete, and then a chance to compete when we come back here too.
Coach, the non-conference schedule, did you build that to build a resume, or do you feel the conference schedule is enough to help you?
Well, you're trying to do a little bit of both, and these schedules are set up years in advance. So when I got here, you're trying to fill holes with whoever you could really get down here. I thought it was important to play 3 non-conference series at home, with the third one being in Tampa, and the travel that's coming up with our first conference series being at BYU. So you're looking a little bit of that. You know you got the series in Tampa set up already, and just trying to make that work as best as possible.
How did you persuade O'Sullivan to get back on the schedule?
No, he was all for it. He was excited about it, just like I was, and it works out for them. This is a closer midweek for them than anybody else probably in the state that they can get to, so it works out for both of us.
Rich, you talked about adding to the strength and conditioning program, bringing new faces. What do you want to see from that group? How would you want to see the improvement on the physicality and the endurance for sure for these guys?
Yeah, I think the overall strength part of it, and then it's the mix of, yes, we want to be strong, but if they're not available and healthy, then it doesn't really matter. So and mixing in that, and he's involved in our practice. Basically, whatever our workload is in practice, HR adjusts the lift, and we'll adjust times, and everything's kind of laid out and really organized on how we can best get these guys to perform. So one, the health of it. Two, I'd like to see us, move better, have more power, run faster, just like all of us would.
Starting rotation wise, is that working itself out? Do you have an idea who you'll go with on opening weekend?
I mean, I have an idea. Like we've stretched out 5 to 6 guys, honestly, between obviously Dom Stagliano, Wiley Hardley, Cam Wicker, Grant Siegel, who was a returner but didn't pitch last year, and then Matt Salzer would be the other one. How we figure that out in the first weekend still to be determined. You really can't. You'd love to just say this guy's starting Friday, this guy's Saturday, this is Sunday. These are the guys throwing on those days. But early in the year, with the pitch counts the way they are, it's really hard to do that. So you're trying to piggyback a couple, and that kind of helped us last year. We figured out that one Dom after the other was a pretty good mix, and the hitters had a tough time with that. And we're hoping to figure something like that out.
Have you experimented with stretching Castellano out? Is he going to be in that high leverage role itself?
I think high leverage to start, but yes, we eventually could see him start. We messed around with it in the fall. We've done it early spring. Just a matter of where that kind of falls in. We feel like him and Chris Sosnowski can start as well. It's just early in the year to have those guys ready to finish the game is probably more important at this point.
Coach, you talk about that Dom and Dom connection. Of course, both of them got named preseason All Big 12. What's the biggest thing about these two together that got the attention of the rest of the conference, you think?
Well, I think the pitchability, right? That strike throwing, the command of each of them have an above average secondary pitch, and obviously Dom Stagliano's now got what I think 2 above average secondary pitches. And their preparation, like those guys are ready to go. They understand who they're facing before the game. They do a good job of not only taking the information we give them, but watching the game and figuring that out on their own and competing out there. Like those guys, it wasn't all smooth sailing for either one of them last year, but they responded. They were tough enough to do that, and I think they kind of helped the rest of our staff deal with some of that.
You had Andrew Wilkinson as a freshman. He goes and has one of the best performances of anyone in the country in the summer. What's he at now, and where's his level?
And the ceiling, I don't know what the ceiling is. I think he just raises forward. You can put All-American or anything you want on Andrew Williamson. Could he achieve it? I think so at some point. We sent away this summer to Bethesda. That's a place where I played that we've always sent our better freshmen because it's a league where there's some time to work out between the games and you're not just playing every day. You're playing a lot, but you're not playing every day. And he kind of went there with a list of things that he needed to work on, and he absolutely attacked those. And you saw it through the summer. His fall was amazing. We've seen it early this spring. I'm just trying to get out of his way and let him do his thing.
What is the outlook for Andrew Sundin? Obviously, was dealing with injury issues last year. How's he feeling this year, and what kind of role do you see him?
Yeah, he battled through that in the fall. Getting back to catching shape and doing that, he looks like he's as physical as he's ever been. First of all, he weighs about 240 pounds. With that thought of how am I going to make it through the year if I don't do the stuff I need to do in the weight room, he attacked that. We're just trying to be careful with him, how much we use him, and there's going to be some days where I might just have to give him a whole off day just because at some point at the end of the year we're going to have to ride him, whether DH or catching. So he is full go, but we're still being cautious with him.
Just kind of Sundin, Dylan King sort of at catcher spot. Is
100%.
That kind of...
And they both have taken massive. Like Dylan King's been absolutely impressive all fall and spring. I could see them almost, those two playing in every game.
Rich, how much of the regional experience you guys had last year at the end, how much did that help you guys? I mean, is there something you could take from that experience maybe to help with some of the guys who are back and maybe kind of help learn on or maybe kind of continue to grow?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why we brought some of those guys in last year that have been in that experience and been through the league like we've been through, because you can talk about it, we try to prepare them, but until you go play in that environment, it's going to be new, and you got to adjust. And if you want to play the games we want to play at the end of the year, the experience in those environments obviously help. I think teams fare better the second time they get a shot at those with more guys you return. Just dealing with all that comes with it, because it's different. No matter how much you want it to be the same, it's playing a game. I get it, but it is a little different. And the guys that have seen it, been around it, they can handle it better.
Coach, in a collegiate athletic landscape that's characterized by transfers left and right, you get a guy back like Lex Bodeker for his senior season. He's been here the whole time. What does it mean to you to have him back, especially as an offensive catalyst? I mean, we're talking about someone that tied for the team lead in runs scored and stolen bases.
Yeah, and not just him. We'll get back to Lex, but like all those guys, all those seniors that have been here, they all could have left twice, and they decided. Sosnowski, Stagliano, Castellano, Sonny, you name it. They all could have done that, and they didn't, because I feel like they feel like this is home and they believe in what we're doing. But Lex specifically, man, he's an unselfish guy. Like we talked about the position change last year. He's taken over first base. He's gotten even better. He can hit. He has power. He'll play unselfish offense, and he might be our best base runner. To see that guy, and he puts it into practice. Like he's just not naturally a great base runner. That's a guy that's for 3 years here has worked his tail off to be a great base runner and become a great defender at first base. And he's not the most talkative guy, but I think the guys voted him the captain because of the way he goes about his business on a day-to-day basis.
Coach, you mentioned keeping a lot of these seniors coming onto the team this year. You guys almost built an identity and culture of getting knocked down but getting back up, especially late into the tournament. How do you kind of use that to carry you guys forward this season?
Well, I think they learned that you can do it, and honestly, in these leagues, like I think we talked about this last year in the same setting, that in these leagues, at some point somebody's going to get you, and how do you recover from that, continue to get better. It's almost like nobody really cares, just figure out a way to get better. And that's kind of what those kids did. And there's a lot of guys left in that locker room that have been through it, been through this league, understands that every weekend's a dogfight, and you just got to keep playing, and hopefully that carries over.
Coach, how much of what I know you're focused on the upcoming season, but with the upcoming house settlement stuff and how you handle rev share and things like that, how much do you kind of want to stay in the know on that, and how much does that really impact what you're going to try to do for the future of the program?
Well, you have to, right? Like there's no way around it. You're looking for a little more clarification on what exactly, especially for our sports specifically, like what is the roster number truly going to be in the fall? Is it 38? Is it 40? Is it 34? Like we still have unanswered questions on that. So daily just trying to figure out where we're going to be so you can give the kids on your roster the best chance, and the guys we're bringing in the best chance to be successful.
How easy or how does recruiting change now with 11.7 scholarships in the past was always kind of a difficult number to manage. I know Karen Maher said next year you'll be at 25 scholarships. So is that how does that change things from a recruiting aspect?
Well, and I think we used NIL from a standpoint of just trying to lessen the cost of the kids. So when you got 34 players and you got 25, and we can break it up, I'm really trying to build this roster where our kids can come here, give everything they have for UCF and UCF baseball, and not leave here with massive loans. Like that's got to be my first, and then obviously you got the real world stuff of who you have to pay to stay and things like that.
Coach, whenever you were talking about running faster and stuff like that, we were able to see a lot of aggressive base running through scrimmages and fall ball. Is that something that you've incorporated into your playbook? And also, is that going to increase the amount of steal attempts?
Well, I think it's always been in the playbook. It's a matter of personnel a little bit. I could want to run as much as I want to. If we can't run, it doesn't make much sense. So, but this group is a more athletic, faster group in general. So we kind of turn them loose in practice and let them do that. And one, I'm trying to figure out when we do turn them loose, who has a feel to do it, or do I need to control when they run or not? And you try to figure that out. The other part is we try to do it in practice, because there's some teams in our league that do try to run at will. And if we don't prepare our pitchers and the team defensive part for that, then we're not really preparing them to face the teams we need to beat. So that's kind of twofold on that.
There was a bit of excitement when Chase Cruzen transferred here from Duke. How does he look through the offseason? What's kind of the expectation for where he'll slot every day?
Yeah, as of right now, he's going to roll out there and start in left field. And, obviously you got 4 guys in the mix out there, but those 4 guys are going to play in one way or another. But he's kind of settled in and left, and he's just an athletic guy out there that has a really strong arm that can make a difference defensively and offensively, and he can do it all. He can bunt, he can run. That's a kid that I recruited when he was 14 years old that we were lucky to get once he went to the portals. We're very excited about it.
You said 4 guys, and you mix it out. But who are the other guys kind of battling for spots right now?
Well, Diamas, Ross, Willie, Chase are going to be out there, and then Matt Preves is going to mix it in between that and DH. That's kind of the rotation that we've rolled since all 4 of them have been here, and all 4 of those guys are going to be in the lineup in some
Coach,
way.
speaking of Ross, do you have history with him, of course, because he would play as a freshman, played for you at FSU. You got Matt Saucer coming over from FSU as well. What's it like to bring those two in, given your history with the Seminoles?
Yeah, obviously I got the coach Diamas, did recruit him. He grew up 40 minutes from here. Brought some, obviously, the speed and the leadoff type guy. I felt like we really didn't have that left-handed leadoff type player, so he brought that in. And overall, like, he's an unbelievable worker. They call him Smiley sometimes because he just never stops smiling. He loves being out there. It's infectious energy. I've coached him before. I've seen it. I know what he's about. Great to have him. Matt Saucer, I never coached, but I did recruit him, and he's been great. That guy's made massive strides since he's been here in the fall.
When you look at the infield, are those spots established, or what do you see from like first base to third?
Yeah, I mean, Lex is going to be playing first. Antonio Jimenez is settled in at short. Kendry Maduro's, he's one of the best defensive third basemen that I've ever coached. And then Braden Calise is back at second, and then Aiden Espinal has pushed everybody. He's going to factor in at some point, whether at second, whether at DH. We've actually moved him behind the plate to create some depth there, and by the end of this, he might be a catcher for us. So he's going to factor in there as well.
Coach, what do the new school additions do to the makeup of the league?
I mean, you're adding premier college baseball programs in Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah's been very good as of late. And Coach Henderson, obviously, at Utah's is an unbelievable coach. But to add those 3, those are 3 really, really tough baseball programs that just, when you look at our league, top to bottom, you don't get a weekend off, and they only add to that.
Coach, with the new rule change, or at least the waiver for players that played at JUCO, getting another year of extra eligibility, considering baseball's relationship with JUCOs, how huge is it for that waiver and that evolution of how that eligibility is working?
I don't know how that waiver is even going to work. So the way it's set up right now, nobody on our team would be affected by that waiver. So I'm just waiting on somebody to tell me that.
Who do you expect to close? Is that a competition closer?
Man, I don't even really name one like that. Kind of figure out it's based on who's available. In college, and you go watch our games, there's some times that you're gonna have to close this game in the 6th. Like the best matchup might be in the 6th, and if I don't use that guy, the highest leverage reliever in the 6th inning, we might not get to the 9th. But we got a handful of guys down there in the bullpen. Some returners, some new guys. Like obviously, Dom Castellano, Chris Sosnowski, Alex Galvan's back and healthy. Bauer back, been great. Carter Stanford, junior college transfer, has been great back there. Isaac Williams from JU, Dakota Stone, like you can go on and on with some real guys that have high leverage stuff, just a matter of where they fit in. And that early in the year, you also try to make sure that we're not using guys on back-to-back days early in the year. Later in the year, there's, like you saw Sauce, like he took the ball multiple times when he was ready. He wanted to pitch in the Florida State game, even though he pitched in the game before. I wouldn't let him do it, but that kid would have done it.
Coach, speaking of Galvan, you also have Trey Wheeler and Carson Finval coming back from being injured last year. How much is this healthier bullpen a huge asset for you this time around?
Yeah, those 2 last year obviously were not healthy enough to pitch. They've had great springs. They're going to play a role in this. James Lordy transferred from Penn State, left-on-left guy. C.J. Hansen, junior college left-hander, has been great. There's a young freshman left-hander, Drew Bellis, that might have the best stuff out of all of them. And Dakota Stone, you could call him a closer, you could middle relief him, he could start as well. So just having that multitude of left-handed options will.
There's a family heritage there with Matola on the roster there. Just speak of Luke, obviously with his dad, obviously a great player here,
and
doing great stuff. What does he bring to the
Well,
program?
Luke was a kid that came to our camps, and just talking to Chad, knowing him, and I hadn't seen Luke, just got here, and Luke was a basketball, football player in high school, so he really only played baseball when baseball rolled around, and he came to camp and he's an electric athlete, and the baseball stuff, he just needs more time baseball-wise to catch up with the skill part of it, to catch up with the athlete, and we've seen it. Like he had a good end of the fall. He he's learning on the job, but the overall athleticism is pretty elite. So we're excited to see where that thing turns out by the end of this.
Time for one or two more questions.
Coach, you add a couple of new opponents to the schedule in terms of Monmouth. You have Siena coming back, history there with them on opening weekend. Just what was your philosophy in terms of finding different opponents this time around?
Yeah, so we really only had like the second and fourth weekend left for me to build. That just happened, and then by the time those got to the point, like obviously Bryant, I know they're an NCAA tournament team. They're got a chance to be another, like they're going to challenge being an NCAA tournament team, no doubt in my mind. They're well coached. They're the type of team we need to play to get ready for the type of offenses we play. We're going to have our hands full, and Monmouth has been to the NCAA tournament a bunch of times. The coach there, he's unbelievable in what he does. Dean, it's great. It's no nonsense. You got to come here and play baseball and beat them, and then we got to go on the road to BYU right after that. So just being smart with. I would love to go on the road for another time, but we really can't with this way the schedule is set up.
Florida and Miami are back on the schedule. Florida State hasn't been on there in a couple years. Obviously, you've got the ties. Is there a chance that Florida State and UCF can connect at some point in the future?
Yeah, and that's something that Link and I talked about. But it's just one, it's a far trip for both of us. Two, these things are done so far in advance that they were off the schedule. So it's kind of waiting for that opportunity to find a spot to get them back on where it works for both of us. And us both starting conference the fourth week makes it tough as well.
Coach, given how long it had been since UCF had made an NCAA tournament, what is it like coming into this season now, having broken that streak? How does it deal with maybe the expectations that might come from that?
I don't think the expectations change. We're here we expect to be in the NCAA tournament. Everything we do, it's set up for that. Anything less than that, the guys will feel like they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's more about, from this point on, getting ourselves better and finding a way to compete for a Big 12 title, and then let the chips fall with it. Right?
That's good. Thanks,
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.